A lot of the work we're doing is to how do we incentivize fleets? How do we incentivize like Californians in light duty cars to be able to transition to zero emission vehicle, whatever that looks like, whether that's electric or hydrogen fuel cell. How do we look at our shipping operations? I know CARB is going to be looking at some regulations for shipping, which is both state and federal. What is that going to look like to reduce emissions? And how do we just clean up the air in this area that has really been designated as like the worst air quality in not just the state of California, but the nation?
All right. Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today, we're glad to be joined by Lena Gonzalez. Lena, how's it going?
Thanks for joining. It's going well. Thank you so much for having me again. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's so good to see you in person here. Last
Likewise.
time, we were on Zoom and you had all those technical difficulties with the internet.
That's right.
I know. And we talked about, the digital divide. And here you were experiencing it in your own home in Long Beach and the problems with broadband. And I think since then you fixed it, right?
No. Well, not in my own home. In fact, I'm still having some issues there. But we did a lot of good work over the last few years on Broadband for All. So really proud of that.
So Broadband for All has happened, right?
Yes.
It's funded. It's paid for.
That's right.
It's being installed as we speak. 2
different iterations of the bill over 2 years from about 2020 to 2022. SB 4 was also companioned with AB 14, Assembly Member Cecilia Aguiar Curry. She and I worked together to be able to push forward, just minimum speeds, 100 megabytes download, 30 megabytes, 20 megabytes upload, and provide the best, fast, reliable speed, technology neutral in the state of California, companioned with $6 billion for local government grants, for unserved and underserved communities. So it's a really big, robust plan that we've done and, feel really good about it.
Yeah. So how long is it going to take to implement and kind of what kind of, I guess now that you're here, you got to watch it, right? To make sure it actually happens.
I do. I'm part of a middle mile advisory committee. We meet every month and that's a really good thing because we're on top of what the PUC is doing, Department of Technology, Caltrans, all of the stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to take some time just because this is a, large infrastructure project. But I think, knowing that the money can go fast, middle mile is very expensive, especially if you use fiber. Mm-hmm. But it's also a great return on investment in terms of the speed, reliability, and just, ensuring that more people have access. So I think it'll take a few years. But nonetheless, I think, we're in a really good spot to potentially even receiving more federal funding. And then continue to keep the state budget dollars where they are. Right now, I think there's $750 million that are sort of on the docket to be removed or deferred, and we want to make sure that we're keeping intact the $6 billion.
There.
Yep, exactly.
You said like middle mile. What is that?
So middle mile, the way I describe it, it's like a super highway of data, a super highway of fiber going through multiple communities to be able to provide fast, reliable internet. It could be fiber. It could be other types of technology as well. There's other sorts of technology, but fiber we know is like I think the most return on investment. It's going to be more expensive on the front end, but at the end of the day, it could touch more community members. It's faster, and that's really where the federal government is going as well, is to ensure that we're making these sort of one-stop approaches. We don't have to go back, dig in, and redo the technology. It's sort of long-lasting.
And so this is like in-ground wiring?
Yes. Okay. That's right.
It's kind of interesting because up in Sacramento, we had all these storms and all these trees fell over. Yeah. And we learned that actually a lot of our internet's actually up in the trees here.
That's right. Exactly.
It's not in the ground.
It's not. And so we can do things differently with this $6 billion, and I'm hoping to do that.
Yeah. Yep. So this has got, a brand new session. You came in in the middle of 2020 or 2021?
2019 I came in.
Was it?
So
was that long, huh?
Yes.
So you've
4
already
years.
had a 2-year session. Okay.
That's right.
But your district's changed a little bit, right?
It will in 2024. I ran 2019 special election and then 2020 for re-election. So I'm in the midst of my first 4-year term.
So how's your district change or will change, I guess, in 2 years? What's the little differences?
Oh, lots of big differences. Really good ones, too. So all of Long Beach, right now I have about 90% of Long Beach. I will have all of Long Beach, the full city, all of Lakewood. I will also ensure, I'll also get Commerce, the city of Commerce, which is in the northern part of the district, and then the rural Los Angeles area of Catalina, which is exciting.
Oh, really? So, Catalina Island.
Yes, the
island. We never
island.
actually really think about who represents there. The
that
voters.
Has
How many voters
issues.
are on Catalina
About
Island?
About 3,000 to 4,000 residents.
Yeah.
So we'll take some trips to.
How can we volunteer to canvass for you?
I know everyone loves Catalina.
Catalina,
it's so great.
We had Senator Newman on, and he bought an ice cream truck.
Okay.
To canvass the neighborhoods. Maybe a boat might be.
I think
I'm
going to need a boat. I think that might be in the works. A campaign boat. But yeah, 3,000, 4,000 residents, and we think of it as a tourist destination, but. They're also dealing with broadband issues, biodiversity, environment, a lot of issues,
inflation,
a lot of good stuff, like everyone,
about.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's a great community. I know, all of it.
So like your district's pretty unique. We just had like kind of Corey Jackson on the other day, and he was talking about how his district is kind of where everything comes from the port and it gets sent to and kind of distributed from. It's kind of this big distribution hub. Kind of your district's pretty cool because you have the pier, and then you go like everything like goes over to like commerce, right? Like everything gets like trucked or trained over, and then there's like this huge train depot. So you basically in your district, everything is like the transportation hub of the world. You got boats, trains, planes, automobiles,
all of it,
all the freeways.
Yes.
And you've had Christina Garcia on. She talks about how bad the air quality is there because you have all this stuff. And now you're chair of transportation too.
Yes.
So what are you working on right now to kind of bring all this together and kind of, I guess, solve a lot of these, I guess, modern transportation problems we're looking at here in the future?
Transportation is my favorite issue. I know it's sort of nerdy to say that. A lot of people have said, why do you want transportation? I mean, I'm the daughter of a truck driver. My chief of staff was in the Transportation Assembly Committee for many years. So we just have this affinity. And of course, the district speaks, to transportation, having the port, the 710 freeway, but also having a lot of impact. So a lot of the work we're doing is how do we incentivize fleets? How do we incentivize light duty Californians in light duty cars to be able to transition to a zero emission vehicle, whatever that looks like, whether that's electric or hydrogen fuel cell. How do we look at our shipping operations? I know CARB is going to be looking at some regulations for shipping, which is both state and federal. What is that going to look like to reduce emissions? And how do we just clean up the air in this area that has really been designated as like the worst air quality in not just the state of California, but the nation? So a lot of that work is in the space of environmental justice, incentives to transition, workforce, and just, making sure that we're still a competitive market for our port and maritime industry across the globe, but that we're doing so mindfully. So a lot of that work.
I guess, how is the port doing? Like during COVID, like it was like backlogged, and you had like, all these stories about ships off the water just waiting to bring stuff in.
Yeah.
Is that still this case? Do we still have like ships waiting a long time to get in, or can we kind of resolve that issue?
Fortunately, we don't. So there's only, no 100, there's not 100 ships anymore waiting at dock. We don't have that issue anymore, thankfully. We're kind of back to normal. Of course, there's still a lot of complexities and questions around, what another supply chain crisis looks like. How could we be more prepared? I had a bill last year that looked at creating an Office of Goods Movement and Office of Freight to be able to have one point of contact in the administration so we can still remain competitive, but also just get through all the issues. So right now, GoBiz is hiring a few people to look at a technology platform where all 11 ports across the state can talk to each other.
We have 11, wow.
We have 11 ports, yes. And just to be able to figure out what the backlog looks like, both on the shipping, the terminal operations, and then also the trucking as well, which is an issue. But everything's looking good, but we've lost cargo to New York, New Jersey. We've lost cargo to Atlanta and to Texas. So we've got to get that cargo back. Sometimes it's hard to do that. So we've really got to figure it out.
So yeah, that's what I guess. So like, if you kind of require, I guess, more strenuous things, like people just take their cargo elsewhere. There's other options, I guess, out there.
They will. There are other options, and they're even. I think Texas was even. They created a YouTube saying why you should come to Texas and the port of Houston and all of this. And I said, oh my gosh, we have to get this cargo back. We still have to remain competitive. California ports are where it's at. We have we're the closest connections to Asia. 60% of our imports are coming from Asia. And then we've got, our own exports as well. And so there's new mechanisms in place, I think, within the administration that I think are really speaking to the efficiency and, again, to just remaining competitive while also ensuring that we're reducing emissions at the same time. So
well, I guess, I don't know, maybe you know this or not, but like some people say, well, that's great. They're taking their stuff elsewhere, and then we don't have the pollution and things like that. Like, why does it matter if we have the cargo here? Like, I'm sure there's lots of jobs and things like that.
That's right. Exactly. You hit it perfectly. 1 in 5 jobs in Los Angeles and Long Beach are port related.
Wow.
So that means the jobs, that means the small businesses that are suppliers, that means just additional workforce down the road. We have a maritime sort of courses at Long Beach City College for folks wanting to get into that maritime industry once others retire. So it's this whole system. But again, I think most people are very supportive locally of the ports and the maritime industry. Again, we just want to make sure that they can coexist. The economics with the environmental justice component.
Yeah, it was interesting. I guess the other day, Monday at the Capitol, they had like all the new electric fleets, or maybe hydrogen to trucks and stuff.
Right.
It's pretty cool. They had the Tesla Semi and the Nikola Semi. Are those being used now, or are those being implemented? And I guess, how does this transition happen? And I guess, we have the technology now. What can we do to kind of speed that transition up from kind of diesel to these new clean technologies?
Well, I'm glad that, a lot of these companies, I was at the CalSTART event in the morning, and a lot of these companies are transitioning, whether it's electric for drayage, the short haul trucks, or hydrogen for long haul trucks. It's really exciting to see everyone sort of say, yes, we're ready and we're going to transition, especially these larger companies that we know have hundreds of trucks in and out of our ports, into Assemblymember Jackson's district, and into these other Central Valley districts that are also seeing the poor health outcomes. So I think what I've done, I have a bill that I put forward over the last couple of years to look at the incentives. We want to extend the clean transportation funding that is due to sunset, I think, next year, and extend that to provide more incentives for light duty, but mostly for medium heavy duty, which we know are the largest polluters, and really get incentives in the hands of our fleets and even small owner-operator truck drivers that really want to transition, but they just don't have the dollars to do so. It's expensive.
You said your dad was a truck driver.
Yes.
What does he think about this?
That's what everyone asks me. He thinks it's great. Yeah. I think, he'll give me the honest truth, and what he says it's a different day. I mean, he was in a big rig, big diesel truck. He wasn't in and out of the port. He was in Redlands and in the Inland Empire, going back and forth to different warehouses, to, all over the place. So knowing that even for his health, when he's in this truck inhaling all of this diesel, these diesel particulate matter, I mean, it's not good for the worker either. Right. So I think it's great to see that transition. But the same thing, how do you do that? How do you transition from a truck that costs $50,000 in diesel to maybe a truck, an electric or a hydrogen that costs $300,000, 3 times more?
Right.
It's going to take a lot of state, market signals, providing the incentive dollars, working with private industry to also just have them help with the transition too. So he's very supportive. Yeah. He wants to make sure we're cleaning up and ensure that, of course, worker standards and labor standards are in place.
It's interesting. I was talking to a couple of truck drivers, and what you don't realize is all the gears they have and all the wear and tear on your legs.
Oh, yeah.
Doing the clutch all the time. So I imagine an automatic transmission in these electric things would be welcome
That's
changes.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So, we've talked about transportation, I guess, ways to clean that up. Something that, I guess the state's been working on a really long time that we haven't been able to figure out is high-speed rail. We funded it. We have this kind of small kind of sample. Kind of what are you looking into there? And, how can we actually make this happen?
Yeah, high-speed rail, I mean, everyone's been questioning it, of course, rightfully so. There's a lot of dollars being spent. Last year it was $4 billion, but I think in the overall, the multi-year is about almost $10 billion that's been spent. And I think, what I think as being a Los Angeles member, I think the Los Angeles delegation has questions as to what it will actually look like in Los Angeles. I know the Bay Area caucus has questions. Will it actually get to the Bay Area?
Right.
And the Central Valley, for the most part, is very happy because they see the construction happening. They see the jobs there. But we don't want this to be a track to nowhere, right? So I am very supportive of the high-speed rail. I want it to continue. But we still have questions that remain. What are we doing for regional transportation planning? There is going to be dollars for light rail. There are going to be dollars for bus rapid transit and additional transit opportunities across the state that would feed into the high-speed rail. We also have an oversight hearing due late March in the Transportation Committee where we get to ask all these questions. What are you doing with the dollars that were spent? And is it likely that, Los Angeles and San Francisco will actually see the endpoints, the bookends? And then what are the other opportunities available for just regional transportation planning? I think those are the large questions that have been asked. Still a lot of answers remain, but I'm still, having gone to other areas of the world, Japan and seeing Germany and China and what is possible and the same hiccups that they've had, it's still likely. It's not just a dream. It is something that can happen. I just think, we have to be patient, but still ask a lot of questions and be transparent as possible.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I saw something on Twitter. Somebody took a map of like the rail lines in Europe. Yeah. And they're just everywhere. Like the map is covered in them. And then they did the US and there's like 10 rail lines entire nation. It's just like empty. It's just nothing we've ever done.
That's right.
As we know it's possible because other countries have done it.
Yes.
And they seem to do it pretty quickly, right? Pretty reasonably.
That's right.
Like what's missing here? Like why can't we do it faster?
Well, I think there's, again, we have to ask. I wasn't in the previous discussions necessarily. I was just a voter that supported this back in 2009. But I think what we need to do right now is continue to look forward. We need to continue to partner with other global, partners, like in Japan, what they've done. They've actually created a public-private partnership. A lot of their value capture is providing hotels, like they create with the private industry, hotels and shops, and being on high-speed rail, or their Shinkansen is what they call it, is a destination. It's not just getting you from point A to point B. You're going there to shop. You're going there to eat ramen. You're going there to enjoy time with your friends. And then, if you want to, you can take a trip, from Tokyo to Kyoto. Right. It's awesome. It's a different type of thinking and culture, but I think we can reinvigorate those discussions while also providing more dollars to, again, regional transportation planning. And we are in the process of hiring an inspector general, so there'll be additional oversight on the high-speed rail that I think will be very helpful. So it's not just the legislature, talking to the high-speed rail authority and asking lots of questions, but we'll have this other entity being able to do that.
That's
too.
Cool. So kind of we've covered transportation and everything kind of that you're working there to kind of clean things up. But, climate change in general is a focus of yours. Kind of, I guess, what else outside of transportation, climate change are you looking at?
Oh, gosh, everything. Do we have 3 hours? This has been a focus of mine for as long as I've been a public servant, since 2014 when I was on the city council. Of course, last year, worked very closely with many of my colleagues in the Senate Democratic Caucus to be able to create a climate working group. We had about a dozen bills or so. Some of my bills focused on transportation equity, lowering the barriers of entry for folks that want to get into light-duty zero-emission vehicles, like waiving the sales tax, ensuring that there's a ombudsperson in the state coordinating all the state agencies to be able to provide an equity component to this zero-emission world that we're in, while also ensuring that there are there's no oil well drilling near where people are living. So SB 1137 is sort of this landmark bill that I authored, along with many colleagues and many folks in the environmental justice community. Basically states, you've got to create a health buffer zone of 3,200 feet from any new oil wells, from schools and parks and homes and everywhere where people are living and working. We're pretty much the only large oil producing state that does not have an oil well setback in a health buffer zone.
Even Texas has one.
Even Texas has one, which is never good to be behind Texas in that regard.
The weirdest thing is not a lot of people know California drills oil or pumps oil. Yes. And the weirdest thing is when you go to LA to like Huntington Beach and you see the derricks like right there on the beach or like close. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. So they're actually doing new wells right now in kind of populated areas.
Well, yeah, now that the bill has been overturned, unfortunately, we've got.
Was it legally overturned or they're just working on
the gas and oil industry already received their signatures. Okay. So it's on pause for another year and a half or so, 2 years. So yes, there'll still be more oil wells. In fact, the city of Signal Hill, I think, is looking at potentially permitting about 26 new oil wells. This is a very stark contrast from what I'm hearing on the ground with residents that say, we don't want this anymore. how are we supposed to hit any of our goals, whether that's 2045 carbon neutrality, ensuring that there are no gas-powered light-duty vehicles by 2035, medium heavy-duty 2045. We have all these goals in place. How does this contribute to those goals? It just takes us backwards.
Right.
And on top of the poor health outcomes, the bad air quality, people have just had enough. So sad to see that it's been overturned, but we'll continue to, move forward and fight to ensure that we at least are hearing our residents, educating them on what this looks like, and continuing to legislate even more.
Yeah. I guess just kind of going back to last session, I remember just being in the lobbyist gallery, just seeing all like the signs and everything. Kind of, what was that like getting I guess that through the legislative process? And I guess how close was it? Did you guys have a pretty good buffer, or was it a few votes here or there, or how was that experience?
Environmental justice policies are always scary, and I say that with a lot of respect, but they are always scary, and I'm trying to figure out why these are so scary. I mean, I understand the politics of it all, a lot of lobbying happening from the gas and oil industry, but at the end of the day, we're here to protect people's health. We're here to protect people first. And so, yes, this barely passed the Senate with 21 votes, which is required to move on to the minimum requirement. So 21, we just, squeaked out of there. And then in the assembly, heading over there and being on the floor with my assembly colleagues, and many of them helping, Assemblymember Brian was critical, Assemblymember Luz Rivas, super critical. So many that were just pushing to get this done. So it was hanging on 40 votes. And then on the back end, I think ended up getting 43 votes, which is just right there. Obviously, 41 is required. So really, really tight. We knew that would happen. But this has also been built on many other colleagues' work as well that did not even get committee hearings or didn't even pass committee. So Assemblymember Marisucci and Senator Weiner and Senator Limon, they'd worked on this before, didn't pass, and so we knew this was going to be tough. But there needs to be a pivot point where we can't function like this as a legislature. We've got to figure out how we make these bills work for people.
So you passed this law. It was signed by the governor. It was supposed to go into effect January 1st.
Yeah.
But they got signatures. They've put it on pause.
Yeah.
So now, as you said, like cities can still act as it was before, right? And they can approve.
That's right.
So you said one city had 26.
One city in my district, Signal Hill, I believe, is moving forward with permitting 26 new oil wells.
Wow.
So it's a lot. I mean, that city is a very small city. It's literally within Long Beach. Maybe 2 square miles. So adding 26 more on top of the health impacts. There's homes that have
what are the health impacts?
Issues.
There's the pumping and the
pumping. I mean, air quality is horrible in Los Angeles, the Long Beach region, the worst air quality. There's lots of kids in my district who get asthma. In fact, we have to go every year to the Port of Long Beach, and we have to ask them for dollars for air filters inside the kids' schools. I don't want to have to do that anymore, just so my kid can breathe, clean air, and my constituents' kids can breathe clean air. It doesn't make any sense.
You think that would just get blown out? Yeah,
right. But it's just not fair for families. It's not fair for folks living in these areas.
So I guess, you did that last year. So what are you doing this year in response? Like, I know you have this bill SB, is it 252?
Yes. Fossil
Fuel Divestment Act. Can you kind of tell us about that?
I know,
what that entails?
We're just going all in. So this one also was
save the dinosaurs.
Save them all. Yeah. We are working off of SB 1173 from last year. And so that was also the divestment bill. Unfortunately, fortunately passed the Senate, did not get a hearing in the Assembly. This time, we're reinvigorated. We've got an even larger coalition of teachers, of Longshore, of union members, of youth, of environmental justice advocates, the same, that want to continue pushing. And so this actually says we want to ensure that CalPERS and CalSTRS divests from fossil fuels, some of the largest fossil fuel companies, in 7 years. So we're giving them a 7-year time frame. In those 7 years, we're asking as well for, by 2025, that CalPERS and STRS provides an annual report on how they've been doing with divestment as they've been phasing it out over the 7 years. This also comes from just the larger idea that, I just think about it as a legislator. Last year, we spent $54 billion on climate change. Mm-hmm. Resiliency for our coasts, drought, vehicles, light-duty vehicles to go zero emission, you name it, wildfire mitigation. Right. And yet we're spending nearly $11 billion of our pensions, hardworking Californians, teachers, firefighters, we're spending their dollars for the same industry that's doing this detriment. It doesn't make sense financially. And, philosophically, teachers, firefighters, folks that I've talked to are tired of it. They've gone to CalPERS and STRS numerous times, and they want answers. So I think this is a fair bill. Other states have done it. New York. I know UCs and CSUs have also divested. Large pension portfolios in the UK and across the globe have divested within 2 years. So it can be done.
7 years seems pretty generous.
It's pretty generous. I know. I would do it tomorrow if I could. But I'm not on the board. I'm just trying to provide an avenue for them to do this.
For them,
some guidance. Yes, we definitely need this on the table so the gas and oil industry knows we mean business.
It's kind of interesting. Like this year, I guess not this year, but late last year, Gavin Newsom announced a special session on windfall gas tax profits or gas profits, right, from oil companies. And then we heard, some rumblings about it, maybe the beginning of the year. We haven't heard anything in like a while. What's the latest on that? Is that still something that's going on, still being talked about? And kind of what's it looking like?
Absolutely. So we have a meeting, I think a hearing next week, I think Wednesday. Mm-hmm. I know it's February 22nd. It's the same day as my son's birthday. So that's how I remember. So yes, it's happening next week. The windfall profits penalty, I think, is what it's being framed as now. And so we're going to have discussions in the Energy and Utilities Committee in the Senate on what the oil and gas industry has done. Why did 5 refineries shut off all at the same time with no notice? Mm-hmm. Why do we not have answers on the marketing and distribution costs? Why is it that crude oil prices went down? Californians received a pinch at the pump. We saw the major increases up to upwards of almost $8 late last year. So why are all these things happening?
Right.
Is it political? Is it you just determining and setting the prices, not providing us more information? People deserve the right to know, and they need to know how it ties into everything. I mean, these industries have made, I think, last year between the big 5, like Exxon, Chevron, BP, and a couple others, over $200 billion. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, because I was talking to, I hear the oil arguments all the time. California is unique and we have to, do a special fuel for California. And so it's not like apples to oranges. And we have, you have only special refiners and we can only do so many refineries. So of course it's going to cost more here than it does in Nevada or Arizona. Okay, we get that. But then how do you explain the billions in profits more than previous years?
Absolutely. Yes, we do know we have the winter blend. We do know that we have additional regulations, but those have been in place for some time. Why is it now that we're getting this spike, when the gas and oil industry determines that we need to see this spike? Those are the questions that remain. Right. We know as Californians, many of these regulations have been in place. We just need answers from them. And it's not fair while, average Californians are making ends meet or trying to make ends meet with inflation and everything else, that the gas and oil industry is making billions of dollars and saying that it's just a modest return. It's not modest when you're making that much off the backs of our residents.
Yeah. One thing kind of, we were talking about climate change and things like that earlier, you mentioned was kind of hydrogen and hydrogen sources. And, I kind of dismissed hydrogen at first because, I researched it and it talks about how it takes so much energy to create it. Yeah. And basically it takes more energy to create than it does than it results in, right? And then someone told me, well, yeah, but if you're looking at it in that way, no, hydrogen doesn't make sense. But basically, we have all these solar and wind turbines and we're just, not able to use it. Mm-hmm. And if you take that excess energy and you make hydrogen, and then you can store that hydrogen and you can use it at nighttime. Mm-hmm. And they're saying that, that's why hydrogen is the answer because we have, they're saying like out in the desert, we have all these wind turbines we don't even turn on, not because it's not windy, but because we just, we have no use for that energy. Kind of what's being done in the hydrogen space, and how can we kind of make hydrogen more of a focus and kind of starting to phase out these natural gas plants?
Well, it's one of the solutions. It's not the solution, I would say. But hydrogen is still in its early stages to some degree, and in some degrees it's not, depending on the business case. I personally think, and I've talked to a lot of folks, and I think that we need to start in the very hard to decarbonize areas. I have the port. That is a very difficult place to decarbonize, but I think it's a great opportunity for us to look at hydrogen on the logistics, the terminal operations, on, of course, shipping. When I was in Japan, seeing the Kawasaki hydrogen prototype ship, that seems to be really cool. And it's in its first stages, of course, but we'll see, and we can learn from that. And then also in the trucking space, this is where we really need to decarbonize, right? The medium heavy duty space, which is happening now. And, and then there's these questions about the different colors, green, blue, gray. Everyone wants to go to green, but what does that look like? It does take a lot of energy. It's very intense of a process, but it's not from the get-go, right? We need to figure out what do we do to get to green, to the cleanest hydrogen space as possible. And there's still some critics, thinking that hydrogen could be just a ploy to continue the fossil fuel usage. But I think if we start in these harder to decarbonize areas like the maritime industry, it will make everything else seem a little easier. We just need to actually see it in practice. So that's my hope, is that we can.
Man, you get to go all over the place and see all sorts of cool stuff.
I know. I'm lucky. Having the port is pretty nice.
That's awesome. So, one thing I remember listening to a Malcolm Gladwell podcast, and he talked about Los Angeles and how there's no parks in absolutely any of the city. And it's actually one of the few cities that doesn't have a large public park or state park, but it has tons of golf courses. And that's like really the only green areas in Los Angeles. Kind of, why is you're working on some things with state parks and kind of SB 378, why is that a focus of yours, and kind of what are you working on?
Well, that's right. I mean, I think just Los Angeles, as you know, I have some park areas in Southeast Los Angeles where the acreage is very low. I think it's less than 1 acre for every 1,000 residents, which is so dense. There's so many people that living in these small cities that they're living near the freeways or living near metal processing plants, the port, all of these impacts, but no park space. Right. It's not fair, and definitely not a state park. It's just a city park, which is still important. But for me, on my time in the city council, coming from local government, I know that park space is really important. Beaches need to be clean. My kids love to go on the paddle boards on the beach. We spend a lot of time there, like any parent would do, but it needs to be clean. So when I was on the city council, I passed a bill, an agenda item that basically said no styrofoam citywide. So it was called the Foam-Free LBC bill that we did. And that's coming off of what SB 378 will be, which is no styrofoam at our state parks. We want to make sure, or in state beaches, we want to make sure that they're clean. We want to make sure that there's no microplastics. We know what they can do if they're put into the ocean, what they can do to the biodiversity, to animals, but also just the litter problem that we have. I think the amount that California spent last year on beach cleanup was over $400 million, just on beach cleanup alone. A lot of it had to do with these styrofoam and the microplastics, which are just a detriment. And it's also building off of the work that Senator Allen did with SB 54, which is really great.
What kind of styrofoam are people bringing? Are these like styrofoam coolers? Are these like styrofoam paddle boards or boogie boards?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Everything. Okay. Coolers are a lot. Of course. And of course the cups, it just runs the gamut of different things. The paddle boards, I haven't seen a lot of that, but I'm sure that there are.
I remember when I was a kid back in the day, we had them.
We had them, right. Me too, I'm sure. Of course, it's all you got.
Cups.
It was
you don't see the styrofoam cup very much anymore. But,
right. But there are options that are alternative that biodegrade. We learned this, as I was doing the bill and the city council for foam-free LBC. There's actually a cooperative that provides biodegradable alternatives at a low cost. So they pull together all of their products. There's a bunch of different businesses that pull together their products, and they can lower the cost and make it really cost neutral to what a styrofoam product would be, and also have the health benefits, the environmental benefits of ensuring that it's low cost but good for the environment.
Right.
So that's the hope here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Something comparable that can biodegrade is great.
That's right.
That was the major bummer when they did the straws. That there are straws. They have them now that are like plastic, but biodegradable and not plastic. But,
exactly. If there's a will, there's a way.
Right.
Exactly. I believe it.
So now you have all this responsibility, right? You got all these bills you're working on. You're transportation committee chair, and now you're the vice chair of the Latino caucus too. Where do you find time in the day?
I don't. I have a great staff. I have a great team. I'm very, very lucky. I've got an awesome supportive family and team, so that makes it work.
So, and what's going on with the Latino caucus? What are you guys working on, and what are some of your goals for, I guess, this session?
Yeah, it's really exciting to be the vice chair, especially serving with the chair, another woman, Latina, who's also a mom, who's doing incredible work in her district, Assemblymember Cervantes. I'm just really glad to be able to serve with her. This year, we've got 35 Latino legislators, Latina legislators, plus 3 constitutional, and plus 3 constitutional officers. So that makes 38 of us. 21 are Latina, which is awesome, and a lot of new faces in the Latina caucus, as we call it. And so it's really great to see this new energy, 2 new members, chair and vice chair. And so we're figuring out our priorities now. And so I'm sure we'll see, what those might be, but haven't decided yet what the priorities will be, but we're in the process. But I'm just excited.
What a change. I just remember the caucus 10 years ago. It was like all men. And now it is the Latina caucus, huh?
It really is. And I think the men, our predecessors really had a focus on ensuring that more women were represented in the Latina caucus, and also that there were, very diverse backgrounds. So that's, really exciting to see that. And many of us are parents. Many of us, have had jobs on the city councils before or come from the private sector. It's a really dynamic caucus. So I'm looking forward to what, the new members, what their priorities are, and just kind of seeing things that have sort of lingered that we need to get done.
Right.
So that'll be really fun.
No, that's great. So it's like bill introduction deadlines coming up.
Yeah.
What's your package look like? What's its size going to be, and kind of what's this session going to look like for you outside of these few ones we just talked about?
The $1 million question. I know we've got a big labor bill, of course. We've got environmental justice, as we mentioned, transportation. Pretty significant bills that I think, are going to take a lift from all of us, all the stakeholders involved, not just my office, but my colleagues and stakeholders outside the building. So it's going to be really exciting. But I think every single one of our bills, whether that's paid sick leave or the environmental justice issue of, refineries having monitoring and notification to residents, or transportation equity, it all speaks to what Californians, I think, are asking for now, is more accountability when it comes to climate change and better laws when it comes to labor and workforce. We're the 4th largest economy, so we got to act like it.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of the most interesting thing is we've had this kind of weird issue where we have all these jobs open, but nobody wants to work. And kind of like, Corey Jackson was on here saying like, these younger people are like, we're not going to work if you're not going to pay us or want things a certain way. So it's really interesting kind of seeing the dynamics here and kind of seeing how the workforce is changing. So that's
right. I know. I think I started working when I was 15. It was just like, you got what you got, and that was it. And you were just lucky to have a job. But now,
if you got $10 an hour, you're like, wow, that's a lot.
And I was probably making, back then minimum wage was maybe $5 something. Right. But now people are asking for sick leave policies that are robust more than the state. They're asking for remote work. They're asking for better pay, of course. Lots of different options that I think, employers need to be attuned to.
Yeah, we just got to $15 an hour and they're like, nah, that's not enough.
Exactly.
Not enough to get me out of bed.
So. That's right. Different world now.
Yeah. Well, you got your work cut out for you. Good luck against this styrofoam lobby, whoever they may be.
I've done that before.
And have the best of President's Day weekend. I hope you have a great session.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Always awesome. A great opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Lena.